What you need to know about the soda lakes of East Africa. A series of low-water, soda-saturated lakes stretch along the southern extremity of the Great Rift. Raw green, pink or dazzling white, the soda lakes of East Africa are strung along the Great Rift like a string of beads. Some glisten in the equatorial sun, with soda baked and transformed into a hard crust at the edge of the water. Others, like Lake Bogoria, gurgle and puff through the hot springs that surround them. The microscopic plants and animals in the water are what give the places their fresh green or pink color, the shades changing depending on their density or the environmental conditions. The billions of algae and tiny animals are so numerous that water saturated in soda bubbles, full of air bubbles. The whiteness of the lakes comes from dry soda and hardened by the evaporation of water. Formed mainly of sodium carbonate, it comes from the alkaline soil and the ash thrown up by volcanoes in the region. The amount of soda in the water varies from one lake to another. Lakes Maggoti and Natron, from the inhospitable southern end of the Great Rift, are the deepest and hottest, also having the highest concentration of soda, given that they are completely closed. Lake Maggoti is located in a semi-desert area, where the temperature reaches 38 degrees Celsius during the day, and it is viscous due to the high content of soda. Lake Natron, which sometimes turns pink, has a lower concentration of soda at the edges, but is more extensive, 64 kilometers long and 16 kilometers wide. Because of the heat, more water evaporates from places than the precipitation brings, approximately 400 millimeters per year. Dry deposits of soda line the shores of the lake, and in the midday heat their surface even reaches 65 degrees Celsius. Other soda places, such as Bogoria, Nakuru and Elmentata, are more hospitable to wildlife, mainly due to the river mouths that constantly renew the water and limit the soda content. However, these lakes shrink due to evaporation. Since the 1950s, Elmentata and Nakuru have almost disappeared, leaving the air loaded with dust irritating to the respiratory tract. Specialists think that, crossing the layers of soda from the Great Rift Valley, the waters of the underground springs continuously increase the soda content of the lakes. In Maggoti, soda has been extracted for commercial purposes since the beginning of the 20th century, without the reserves diminishing. Hot springs and geysers are fed by volcanic rocks. At Bogoria, boiling water spills onto the grass, posing a danger to visitors. In Natron and Maggoti lakes, the hot springs are the only source of fresh water and shelter a small species of tilapia, a fish that has adapted to life in hot water. After a rain, when the soda is diluted, the fish multiply rapidly. Millions of specimens gather in shallow waters that seem to boil with agitation. In the 1950s, Leslie Brown, a British naturalist and agricultural officer for Kenya, traveled to Lake Natron and found that the flamingos he had seen in the air could multiply there. To observe the birds up close, Brown had to walk at least 11 kilometers. Starting at dawn, he reached the edge of the lake and began to cross the soda crust. Everything seemed to be going well, but after a while the crust began to crumble under his steps, his feet getting stuck in the soft and foul-smelling mud. The entry became more and more difficult, each step required an exhausting effort, and soon the drinking water in the tank was filled with soda powder. Despite his endurance and his experience as a naturist in Scotland, progress was so difficult that Brown had to turn back. Burnt, dehydration and fatigue were to prove fatal. As soon as he reached solid ground, he took off his boots full of soda crystals, and his injured feet turned black on contact with the air. After the long drive to the camp, Brown fainted and remained unconscious for 3 days in the hospital. It took 6 weeks and several skin grafts for his legs to recover. Flocks of flamingos. Although hostile to humans and other animals, the lakes host approximately 3 million small flamingo birds and 50,000 large ones, which feed on the flora and fauna of the waters. The pigments in the food are what give them the reddish color of the feathers. The birds eat everything the lakes have in abundance, their diet varying over time. They usually raise their young on isolated lakes, such as Natron, the banks covered with soda, keeping predators at bay, including jackals. The birds feed on algae and insect larvae by bending their heads and filtering the water and mud through their beaks held in the water upside down, like some pollux. They eat especially at night, when hunting stops. During the day, the breezes ripple the surface of the water and fill their beaks with mud, but sometimes the birds cling to each other them, so that in the middle of them a pool of calm water is formed, in which they can feed at their leisure. See you next time.